Hi, so in this session, I want to answer the question of what does woke mean? A lot of people use it. What does it mean? So originally, the word woke meant it was a term referring to a state of awareness, whether it was recognizing social issues, whether it was recognizing danger, whether it was recognizing deception. It was simply the state of being aware. It was a very positive term. It still is a very positive term. Now, it was traditionally used amongst black people. That's our term. We were using that because we had to. But in more recent times, over the last maybe 3, 4 years, it kind of got hijacked by conservative white people, and they started to misuse the term. They gave it a new meaning, which is started to become a bit more popular. Um, and typically, whenever they're saying the word woke, they say it with quotation marks or air quotes around it, um, in an antagonistic manner. Now, what changed? What does it mean when they say it versus what it originally meant? Well, it's being used in a mocking tone, um, and it's typically referencing a few different groups. And depending on who's saying it, they're talking about any of these groups. But in general, when they use the word woke, they're talking about all the different people groups that they hate. Whether that be black people, whether that be women, whether that just be minority groups in general, or simply not white groups. Um, whether they're talking about gay people or the LGBT. It's just a safe way for them to air out their grievances without having to be specific on which people group they're attacking. And if you notice, anytime you ask someone who uses the word to define the word, they usually get mad at you. They usually get defensive because they know they're up to no good. Um, so that's a simple answer. If they begin to answer what does woke mean, they realize very quickly that it doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound good when you just say it out in the open and detail what it actually entails. It's easier to say, oh, I hate all this woke stuff, than it is for them to publicly say, man, I hate how many black people are around. I hate that. And typically, here's the thing with black people, it's whenever any of those people groups, whether it be black people, women, the LGBT, or just minority or non-white groups in general, it's whenever they're presented in a way that is empowering or normal, or in some cases that are speaking against the atrocities that have happened to those groups, that make white people either feel uncomfortable or look bad. So any of that could get it classified as woke, because Django, or let's just say all the other slave movies that we had, don't get labeled woke. So it's not just black people being in film. No, it's anytime we're put in a position that makes us empowered. It's an empowering presentation. And that will manifest itself in many different ways. Um, because in a way, it hints back to racism. Well, back in the day, you go back to the 50s, you go back to the 60s, you go back to even the 70s, you go back to the 40s. Well, within this time period, black people had already gained their freedom from slavery. Some areas were still segregated, just depending on the time period and the region. Segregation had ended, and people were in integrated communities. Now, during this time, all these people groups did not necessarily have equal rights. Typically within America, unless you fit within the demographic of white, male, heterosexual, Christian, the country's a bit harder on you. And the further back you go in history, even as recent as the 90s, you start to see that even simply being a white woman who fits every other category was a bit rougher, because it wasn't until recently that women could have their own bank accounts. They could start their business without the need of a husband or a male cosigner. Simple things like that. So anything that puts an empowerment on all these groups who were not too long ago suppressed, oppressed, covered up, disempowered, that's where the term woke comes in. So hopefully I helped clear up some of the confusion around the term. It's a term that bigots use whenever they want to speak against a group, but they're too cowardly to address the group and say how they really feel. It's a coward's term in the way that it's typically being used around this time. The original term is really just a term of being aware. You're noticing what's going on. That's about it. Well, love y'all. Until next time, y'all be blessed. Later.